right, it's 2 p.m. Central African time. This is Market View, the first edition of this week. We are wrapping up the month of May. Really happy to be your host as we come back from a very long weekend, hoping that everyone is ready, as already kickstarting the week in a great start. Now, coming up on our show today, the Central Bank of Eswatini is throwing open the gates to innovation. They're inviting fintechs as well as startups into its regulatory sandbox. What is that? They're rolling out a bold new strategy for financial inclusion, and we are going to be live with the players at the heart of it. Also, in an increasingly digital world, too many young entrepreneurs are still stuck offline. Now, we hear from Jay Mary. She has a rallying cry for SMEs to wake up, get online, and own their space in this digital economy, as she should. And then the creative sector gets a much-needed boost. 200,000 emalangeni in government funding has been announced. The question is, will it be enough? We put the tough questions to the man overseeing it all, Meli Hlanze. Also, I had a quick check on global markets. Wall Street continues to surge with record highs. European bourses are buoyant. Asia is mixed. And what's moving commodities and currencies at this current hour? It's all coming up here on Market View this afternoon, and we are ready to go. So let's start the show by looking at the business news that define the day today. All right, now, first story, the Central Bank of Eswatini is urging innovators and fintech startups to take advantage of its regulatory sandbox, a pioneering move that is aimed at fostering innovation in the financial sector. Speaking at Happy Valley during the development of the Fintech National Strategy with the Alliance for Financial Inclusion, the Ministry of Finance and different stakeholders, the bank's Deputy Director Operations, Fintech Innovation, Linda Dlamini, says this is one way of ensuring that financial inclusion, even for Eswatini, is there at grassroots level.
The strategy that we want to develop now is to allow us to come up with a roadmap that's going to help us now try and close those gaps, because we have those gaps that were identified by the landscape scoping exercise. So we are also here to even just make sure that we have everyone's voice. That is why we have different stakeholders. As the central bank, we even have the innovation facilitators like the sandbox that enables us to engage with innovators where they can test their services, they can test their products before they can be fully rolled out into the market. In terms of accessing the sandbox or the services of the sandbox, you need to apply to the central bank. You can start with an inquiry. If you go into our website, you will find an email address that you can send your inquiry to. And as the FinTech office, we will respond to your inquiry, and then we will guide you if you want to submit an application. Because what we need to be aware of is that you cannot participate in the financial space without having an approval of the central bank or that relevant authority.
The policy manager at the Alliance for Financial Inclusion highlights some of the key areas that Eswatini should focus on to increase financial inclusion.
Eswatini already has a national financial inclusion strategy that identifies where the gaps are, what the barriers are, and how you want to address them. You also have very balanced regulations, so which means you are allowing more people into the ecosystem to come and innovate and to try new things. So what you're trying to do now is open a new frontier to how do you now focus on financial technology, leveraging the good things you've already done. So financial technology will help you support the current work you're doing in reaching out to small businesses, reaching out to farmers, reaching out to people in diaspora, but also help you create new avenues to create more opportunities for growth, for jobs, and develop your economy in that regard.
The Minister of Information, Communication and Technology says measures are being put in place to ensure Eswatini have multiple payment platforms as a way to ensure financial inclusion, even for those in rural areas using feature phones. He outlined some of these initiatives.
We will also be developing a mobile app, version of the e-services portal, integrating everything into the mobile platform. We want to then also make sure that we introduce multiple payment platforms for government services.
According to the Minister of Finance, financial inclusion currently stands at 87% in the country. The International Monetary Fund states that in developing nations, digital innovation by fintech companies has allowed entire economies to offer a multitude of options to people who would likely be excluded from traditional banking systems. For Market View, Nelson Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa, Ezulwini.
Local and small and medium enterprises are missing out on the power of digital media. That's according to J. Mary, who lamented that the Girl Get Your Body Fit, which is an organization or a company that she's the chief executive officer of. She spoke at the Day of the Youth Business Accelerator Eswatini last Thursday, where she said many businesses are still operating offline, and she urges young entrepreneurs to leverage tools like Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn to maximize their reach and build lasting brands online. Now, the 5-day workshop supported by the U.S. Embassy and Rainport wrapped up last Friday, leaving participants fired up and ready to go digital.
We're running the Youth Business Accelerator Eswatini. It's a program that's with the U.S. Embassy and Rainpot. We are able to bring this program here to Eswatini, and we're using the curriculum from Arizona State University, and we're teaching youth entrepreneurs how to really thrive and be successful in their businesses. Today is really exciting because we have the Center for Financial Inclusion coming to do a whole workshop for our youth on financial literacy. And this is something that entrepreneurs absolutely need to be successful. Some of the challenges that we've seen are how to scale. So far, we've seen youth come in and they have a business and it's going kind of well. They might have 3 or 4 clients. They might have people who come in every once in a while. But we're teaching them how to get steady income every single month and how to do the marketing and the outreach to make sure their businesses are able to grow. These are the questions that they're asking. How do I grow my business? I've got a business, but I want it to be stable, and I want it to be something that can maintain me and even a family. So how can I really do that? So we're teaching them these things.
J. Marie mentions some social media platforms that the youth can capitalize on to promote their businesses.
So the level of social media that they have used to promote their business, low. But the hunger, the appetite for it is high. And so my advice is really to test the short form platforms. I'm referring to YouTube Shorts, IG Reels, TikToks. We had a whole class where we went over my framework. I believe if you have a hook, a qualifier, a value point, and a call to action, then you can test out the services and products that you offer, and you can also test out the message that is necessary to get your audience, to get someone to become a part of your audience, and not only become a part of your audience, but become a customer. Now, the thing about that, it takes a little while to get comfortable. I believe that you don't have an account until you have 100 videos posted. So that takes time. 3 to 5 videos a day, 60 seconds or less. That's what you have to do. Just show up consistently.
Eswatini has over 90,000 small and medium enterprises, according to the Center for Financial Inclusion. Approximately 24% of small-scale businesses are owned by the youth between the ages 18 to 34. For Market View, Nelson Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa, Mbabane.
All right, let's go for that break. We have an interesting discussion after the break with Meli Hlanze. We are speaking about the announcement that was made by Minister Mangoba Khumalo last week, 200,000 for the creative industry. After the break.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
This is our Enterprise Watch segment. Thank you for staying with us. Now, the Minister for Commerce, Industry and Trade, Honorable Manqoba Khumalo, last week announced a significant allocation of 200,000 emalangeni. This is in support of the creative industry in the Kingdom of Eswatini. Now, the funding is channeled through the Eswatini Copyright and Neighboring Rights Society, which is aimed at providing financial support to artists and creators in Eswatini. Now, the government's move has been met with widespread interest, particularly regarding how the money will be distributed, who will be eligible, to access it, and whether it will be enough to meet the needs of these, of this sector. Now, to answer these questions and provide clarity, Meli Hlanze, the Executive Director of the Eswatini Copyright and Neighboring Rights Society. Meli, good afternoon. Welcome to the program. I think as we open this conversation, we are privy of the long-standing challenges and structural support for your sector. Is this money enough to address those challenges?
Well,
if it's for that.
It is not enough, but I think we should understand the principle of what is happening. It's a start.
Right.
So I'd want to maybe remind the viewers that as a society, our mandate is not only to collect and distribute the royalties for the artists, but it's also to set up necessary infrastructure that can help develop the industry. Part of such initiatives involves having development funds. So in essence, the society would have to wait to accumulate funds from collections in order to establish the fund. But what the government has done through what the Honourable Minister announces to say, we won't wait for that to happen, but we will seed the fund into existence. So this is a seed really that the government is committing to say, we are really just getting the ball rolling. And then as a society, we still have a mandate to make sure that the fund appreciates beyond the 200,000 that has been seeded by the government.
Maybe we'll get into, how you plan to do that. But can you clarify for us? Yeah. I did premise and preface this conversation with a widespread question regarding, who is eligible. So can you clarify for us which artists and creators are eligible for this type of funding?
So there will be an eligibility criteria that we will develop and share with the public. But in essence, the clearest one that I can give is that you have to be a member of the Eswatini Copyright and Neighboring Rights Society, ESWACOS. So in essence, the fund is to empower artists, but through ESWACOS. I think our viewers will remember that ESWACOS does whatever it does through a membership. And this is something that the minister also did during Copyright Day last week, was to unveil the first cohort of applicants to the society, which is 52 members. And we're looking to grow this membership beyond just the 52 as we roll it out on a national wide basis, because we had only done a pilot based on the artists that had participated in our surveys and in our workshops. But over the next 3 months, we're looking to roll it out nationally. And then once you become a member of the society, you will be eligible, together with some of the other requirements that we will be sharing with our members and the public.
Before we even see if you are really eligible, the prerequisite is you being a member. I think that is important to emphasize for the creative industry there to know. But let's be frank here, and I'm glad that the position that you hold there is puts you in the right place to answer this question. There's always a big concern around public funds regarding particularly transparency and accountability. What mechanisms are in place to make sure that indeed there is transparency and accountability in the distribution of these funds?
Well, first and foremost, we work with a board that oversees all the decisions we make. So first and foremost, we're accountable to the board. Secondly, we are accountable to the ministry through the Copyright Office. And then thirdly, once we've established our membership, the society will have AGMs in which the General Assembly will be able to get that review of the annual reports and our annual audited statements. So these are all things that will be available not only for our members, but also other stakeholders to look into. But so far, I can attest that there's nothing to be worried about.
Melly, given right now what I would call the most rich and talented cohort of filmmakers and musicians. I mean, you look at our music industry right now, some really, really great artists, and they are very diverse. It's pretty much the same thing with our film industry. We are seeing some beautifully made local films, very compelling and engaging content. You look at the money, it's 200,000 involved.
Yeah.
And you call it the creative industry as an umbrella. How do you make sure that you distribute this money fairly and evenly?
So from the 200,000 that has been seeded by the ministry, 100,000 will specifically go into supporting the development of short films. As you have mentioned, that we have a rise in a lot of short films that we're seeing online by local independent filmmakers. So that fund will be made available to them to support. I think it's important to note that the fund doesn't necessarily replace the need to still secure funding elsewhere.
Absolutely.
But it supports the initiatives to say, in whatever you've been able to do in the past, now there's a boost over and above that. And the other one, which I think I can speak to even more so, is the other 100,000, which will be to fund the creation and promotion of new works.
Okay.
We want a situation where users of local content are spoiled for choice. So we realize that we need to seed the creation of new works. So the other 100,000 will specifically go towards creating new works and will be broken down into seeds of about small grants of about 5,000 emalangeni.
Okay.
So in essence, you're looking at helping 20 creators or artists to either create a new song, shoot a new music video, and, maybe just to touch on your other question, of course, we know it's not enough, but it's a start. We're moving from a place where there was little to no support to now saying, here's this added support to help flood the local market with quality local content.
I think the consensus here is that 200,000 is a start, but we can say it's a drop in the ocean. And I know, given some of the internal assessments that you're alluding to, surely there should be a benchmark or a ballpark estimate of this is how much we need really to meet the momentum that we really need. And I want you to answer how much that would be, but also I do want to understand how one becomes a member and how many members you have right now. So this is a three-part question.
So firstly, in terms of our current membership, like I mentioned, we have 52 prospective members.
52.
So the process of membership is dictated by the Act, in which we have to advertise the membership to the public for a period of 60 days, because in being a member, you're actually registering a work, which I'll explain in how to become a member.
Okay.
And this work that you'd be registering, people must be able to inspect so as to be able to oppose in case you are now registering work that belongs to someone else. So those prospective members are still undergoing that process, but we have a database of over 400 artists who have already expressed interest in becoming members.
Okay.
So the first 50 was just to pilot the process itself. And now we're moving into a phase where the 400 will then be allowed to partake. And then because we're also developing an online platform that will allow for a comprehensive national rollout, we'll then roll that out in which other people can apply. Now, how you become a member, in essence, you need to have an eligible work. When I say work, I mean copyright, of course. So whether it's a song, whether it's a book, whether it's a film, whatever type of copyright that you have, so long as it is eligible, that is, it's original and it's been fixated, you can register that together with your application to become a member of the society. And currently, as I mentioned, there are artists who have already expressed that they are partaking in the second round of applications, and we will roll it out nationally. I know there's a lot of artists who are waiting to line up to be part of the society, but we also want to do it in a way that will manage the volumes, and we envision that being an online platform. So once that is set up, we'll be inviting the public to also engage in those applications and submitting those applications for membership.
Many thank you so much for your time. I'm happy with the number of prospective or people that are really keen to be a part of what you guys are doing. I guess that validates the work that you do. But also importantly, I love the criteria of really noticing if there's ever any form of infringement there. I think it would have been hypocritical if that was in there. Melishanze, Executive Director, thank you so much for your time. We have market analysis after the break. To stay with us.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
In the interest of time, 6 minutes left for our market analysis. Sanel SBI is in studio. He's our economist. He's going to help us understand the numbers that define the markets today. Wall Street is continuing to push into record territory. The Dow is crossing 40,000 points. What are the main drivers behind this rally, and how sustainable does he think it is, given the broader economic signal? Sanele, good afternoon. I think that's the first question for you, and hopefully, if time allows, we'll go with it bit by bit.
All right. So in terms of sustainability, Malo, it all depends on the news that are going to come out of the White House.
Right.
So right now, the rally that we are seeing in Wall Street is largely supported by by the pause in the tariffs and those negotiations country on country. So that's why we're seeing the numbers getting back up. The S&P 500 is back on that 5,500 mark. That was probably your January figure, January, February, up for the first half of last year. That's what we are seeing. And then when the Trump train got going, we then moved to that 6,000 region. The Dow Jones back on that 40. Hopefully it's going to get back to 42. But what we are looking out for this week is we do have that non-farm payroll data, and we do have that unemployment data coming out. So that's going to give a signal of how much damage have Trump have these tariffs had on the U.S. economy.
Yeah.
So we are waiting to see that. And there's also a barrage of earnings. Your Q1 earnings are coming in this week. So we're seeing investors waiting to see how that's going to go and how the tariffs have affected, profitability in the first quarter. So it's a very important week. So that's why when you're looking at the futures, they are kind of mixed. So waiting to see how markets are going to open up.
These numbers are telling me that Nasdaq has been the biggest gainer there. They're up over 1%.
Yeah.
I did realize the other numbers are, 0.0.
Yeah.
What is really behind this rally there? What is happening with the tech stocks?
With tech, what we saw last week and the week before was President Trump's weakening stance towards Taiwan, and we know that the Taiwan chip manufacturing company TSMC is actually be one of the biggest chip makers across the globe. So a bit of stability on that front allows your AI-dominated stocks to actually just get a boost.
Sure. Just quickly, inflation in Europe is slowing.
Yeah.
But we do something very interesting here. Growth remains sluggish. What are these numbers telling you?
So what we are seeing there is, amid that slowing inflation, we've seen the European Central Bank also cutting down on the baseline interest rate in anticipation of what the Trump policies mean.
Yeah.
So that's actually meant to boost up consumption a bit, and we're seeing that working more especially in London in terms of, the boost in consumption. And also when you look at what is moving the markets today, it is those consumer-centered commodities within the European markets. So that's why we're seeing moving markets in terms of the likely impact of the Trump tariffs. Now, that has somehow slowed a bit, and we're waiting to see what kind of deal is going to come out between the U.S. and the EU. So that's what markets are looking for. Though growth remains a bit sluggish, but there is a bit of optimism, and at least, just to take advantage of this 90-day window. And the cut in interest rates, when Christine Lagarde cut those interest rates, it somehow signaled that the European Union is being proactive in terms of what might likely come with the Trump tariffs.
A lot of green that we've seen so far.
Yeah.
In Asia, what could turn sentiment around there? Because Nikkei is rather gaining some ground, but Hang Seng and Shanghai, negative territory.
Yeah, I think when you look at the numbers, it does show that it's a bit of a positive. But what we are waiting to see, what markets were waiting to see, was how the Chinese finance minister was actually going to come out and make a statement in terms of those stimulus. So when you look into Asia, the mainland and Hong Kong are somehow it did slow down a bit towards the close of markets. But when you're looking at the numbers, it does show that the Hang Seng is back in the 2,000 mark. And the Chinese, the Shanghai Stock Exchange remains relatively stable because markets were waiting for that announcement and to see how what kind of stimulus the Chinese economy is going to receive.
Commodities and currencies, a quick roundup. We have a minute.
All right. So in terms of commodities, what we're seeing there is gold losing a bit. That's because, when this 90-day freeze on tariffs was announced, the dollar is beginning to gain a bit of stability. So we're seeing that shift in terms of our investment portfolios going back to currencies. And also it's earnings week. So we're likely to see people who are looking at leveraging and looking at getting in on those earnings that are coming through. And then in terms of Brent crude, again, there is a bit of easing in the tensions, more especially between Iran and the US in terms of that nuclear deal. So there's a bit of relief in those. And we saw Saudi Aramco really just cutting their dividend, showing that there's a bit of uncertainty in terms of how the markets are going to look. And then when you come into the currencies, again, we're seeing a relative strength in the Langeni against the dollar, the Langeni against the euro, with a bit of weakness against the Japanese yen. So that's purely because of the risks that have been taken out of the markets. The Trump tariffs have, the pause has actually taken out this additional dynamic of risk, while, gold continues to show up the South African economy and thereby supporting the gains in Langeni.
Very little time, but you have done a pretty good job covering all these indices. Thank you so much for staying with us on the program. This has been Sunny Lesbia on our market analysis, and this marks the end of our program today. Bye-bye.